Hey guys, good to see you again. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Rev Jon Roberts. I'm the vicar of St Stephen's Church just behind this house here in Southmead, Bristol. Today is Sunday the 29th of March. We're still in the season of Lent, and I've got a brief reflection to share with you on a Bible reading from today. This is aimed at anyone from the regular St Stephen's congregation, but also anyone else from this or any wider community that would like to watch. Welcome. Hey guys, so I would like to introduce you to the newest members of the Roberts family. We've got some chickens. They're just warming themselves up under the little heat lamp. There are actually 5 in there. Sam and Joshua keep letting them out, so I think they're all in there. And they're about 3 weeks old now. And they are there's 4 girls and 1 boy. They're a breed called cream leg bars, and they've got to be kept inside for another couple of months, I think. But yeah, chickens. It's a wonderful time of year to have chicks in the house. Obviously, there's lots and lots of signs outside in the garden, all around us, in the bird song, in the plants, in the trees, of spring. One of my favourite times of year, where we see those signs of new life all around us, really helping to remind us and prepare us for Easter. Of course, chicks are likewise a really refreshing, fun, enjoyable, beautiful, gorgeous sort of sign of that constant pattern of grace in our world, of birth, of new life, which as the church we kind of see as all being tied up in the powers of grace that come from God, that are really brought home for each and every one of us at Easter, when we celebrate the new life that comes through Jesus Christ on the cross and in the empty tomb, where we see Jesus triumphing over all human suffering, even over death. And these signs of new life are certainly for me a kind of a constant reminder that that pattern of grace is built into the fabric of creation. There is new life. There is constantly the regeneration of new life that comes from God's providence, God's love for this world. So it's lovely having these beautiful, fun chicks. It's lovely seeing how much fun our boys get from interacting with them. And my wife, she's enjoying them quite a lot. She was cuddling them on the sofa all afternoon to warm them up because they were cold. For me, this is a reminder of that new life that we celebrate through Jesus Christ, that we celebrate being offered through Jesus Christ as he triumphs over death and makes that offer of new life to each and every one of us. We see it in the very foundation of our world, in how all life works. But even when there is brokenness and suffering and pain and angst in our world, we have these reminders that point us towards Jesus and what Jesus did for us in bringing us the new life of the resurrection at Easter. And that's what we're going to be thinking a little bit about today as we think about the Gospel reading from this Sunday. So the Bible reading for today is from the Gospel of John, chapter 11, verses 1 to 45. And you can follow the story for yourself if you'd like, or read it later. And it begins with a man called Lazarus, who's ill. And Lazarus has two sisters, Mary and Martha. We know about Mary and Martha from other stories in the Gospel. So Mary's the one who anoints Jesus with precious oil and wipes the oil away with her hair. And then there's the story of Mary and Martha, where Mary is sitting with the disciples listening to Jesus, and Martha is busying herself in the kitchen making a meal. And Martha says to Jesus, "Can you tell my sister to help me, please?" And Jesus says, "She's listening, she's being a follower, she's being a disciple. Think about doing likewise." So we know about Mary and Martha, and their brother Lazarus is also a close friend of Jesus and the disciples. And the story in John chapter 11, verses 1 to 45, which is the gospel reading for today, begins with Lazarus being ill. And a message is sent to Jesus telling them that Lazarus is ill. And this point in John's Gospel, chapter 11, is a pivotal point in John's narrative. Jesus, by this point, is well established. He's got a number of committed followers. He's been travelling around lots. He's done lots of miracles and signs. And he's built up quite a bit of animosity from the powers and principalities of his day, those who are in control, those who he's rubbing up the wrong way. And up to this point, Jesus' followers have become more and more aware that those powers, those authorities, in this case the Jews in Jerusalem, are getting ready to mount an attack against Jesus. So when this request comes for Jesus to go back to Bethany, which is just outside Jerusalem, Jesus' followers are anxious and worried, and they say, "Jesus, don't go." And as Jesus often does, he does something a bit strange. Rather than saying what you might expect him to, he says, "Whilst my friend Lazarus is ill, I'm going to wait. I won't go back." And then 2 days later he says, "Now that my friend Lazarus is dead, I will go back. And you will see what I do, and you will be grateful." Now, as Jesus and his followers are on their way to Bethany, Martha, Lazarus' sister, comes out to meet them. And I think she's a bit upset with Jesus, it's fair to say. She says to him, "If you had come when my brother was ill, he might still be alive." So I think it's fair to say she's probably quite upset. But even then, she has the faith to say, "But if you come now, things might still be okay." And Jesus replies to her and says, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those that believe in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" And Martha says back to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God." I mean, wow. Can you imagine? You've just been told that this friend of yours and your disciples is dead. And in front of them and in front of the grieving sister, you say, "If you believe in me, you will not die." That's quite a brave, bold, dramatic, radical thing to do. And of course, after this, Jesus then carries on to the tomb where Lazarus has been laid, where his body has been wrapped up and laid down. And he sort of says to Lazarus, it's kind of no nonsense. He says, "Get up, stop messing around, come out." There's a kind of a confidence to it, a surety. It leaves no room for doubt, really. It's very impressive. And then, of course, straight after this story is exactly the point when the Jews decide they're going to kill Jesus. Some of the Jews had been there at Bethany watching as Lazarus had come out of the tomb. And this is the point where they decide enough is enough. You see, chapter 11 it's this really pivotal point where it's almost like Jesus has been waiting and waiting, and now he decides this is the time. It's like he knows exactly what's going to happen when he gets to Jerusalem. And sure enough, straight after this story with Jesus, Mary, Martha and Lazarus, the Jews from Jerusalem begin their plot to kill him. This is the point that finally persuades those powers and principalities that Jesus is enough of a threat to warrant killing him. And why do they think that? Well, it seems quite clear that this raising of Lazarus is the final straw. He's been talking about things, he's been doing signs, but raising someone to new life is the final straw. This is the point Jesus has been waiting for. He knew that those powers and principalities were on the edge. He knew the next time he headed back towards Jerusalem, there might be trouble. He knew when he performed one more sign, one more most drastic sign, raising someone to new life, that it might just push those in authority too far. Jesus also knew that he was sent by his Father to do these things. And he knew that this would eventually lead to his own death, yet he did it anyway. Such was the compassion, the mercy, the grace of God made known to us in Jesus, that no matter what the cost to himself, Jesus would do what was right, what he had been called to do by God. We ourselves we're 2 weeks away from Easter now. Next Sunday is Palm Sunday, when we remember the story of Jesus's kind of kingly, triumphal entry into Jerusalem. And then we go through Holy Week with Jesus dying on the cross. And then we have the joyful celebration of the resurrection 2 weeks today, when we celebrate new life, triumph over evil, even over death itself. And it might be a bit of a strange Easter, this one. Not in church buildings, not doing the public witness down by Arnside, not doing the normal things that we're used to, at least for us here in the modern Western world, where we have the luxury of being able to worship publicly and openly, to be public Christians, to have church buildings that are so public and so prominent. Perhaps this Easter wouldn't feel too strange for many other Christians around the world and throughout the history of the church. And we too are at a pivotal point in our journey, our exile from our buildings, our pilgrimage of finding a new way to be church for the next few months, if not longer. We too are at this pivotal point when we are trying to decide what being church today looks like for us here at St. Stephen's and in many other communities. Do we hold back? Do we play it safe? Do we do what's sensible to the eyes of the world? Do we keep on waiting and waiting? Do we hedge our bets? Or do we go, nah, we're approaching Easter, that time in the Christian year where we say Christ is risen, that time where we say that suffering and the whole human experience is taken up by God and blessed, and that we are given the gift of new life. The resurrection is for every single one of us here and now. Do we say that in this Lenten season, as we're preparing for that wonderful celebration, where we're thinking about how we respond to that love and that compassion of God made known to us in Jesus Christ, who would do whatever was right, whatever God was calling him to, no matter what the consequences for himself? Do we jump in and really explore what it means to be the church in the here and now. Do we follow God, follow Jesus, no matter what the consequences? In the next few weeks and months, there's going to be a real opportunity for us as the church. Whether it's food parcels for those who are isolating, whether it's through sharing in worship and prayer online, whether it's through phone support to one another and maybe more people throughout the wider community. We haven't yet reached the peak of the coronavirus in this country. Things are going to get tougher before they get better. And these restrictions on our public worship could be for many more months. At this pivotal time in our life as the church, what are we going to do? So I thought I'd come back to the chicks to share a couple of prayers with you guys. Partly because I think it's a lovely sound to have in the background, and partly because, like lots of signs of spring that are around at the moment, it's a reminder for me of the way that God works, the new life that Jesus brings into the world at Easter through his triumph over human suffering and his death. I'm going to share a couple of prayers now. You're welcome to join in or not as you are able or as you want. The word should come up on the screen. Let's pray. God of love and compassion, be close to all of us who are ill, afraid, or in isolation. In our loneliness, be our consolation. In our anxiety, be our hope. In our darkness, be our light. Through him who suffered on the cross, but reigns with you in glory, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And I'm going to share the Lord's Prayer and invite you to join in with that as well, because it's that prayer that Jesus gives as, if you like, a shape for all of our prayers, and a shape for us as disciples to guide us and lead us into following Jesus in the way he calls us. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Thank you all for watching and joining us. I'll try and do the same again next week. A live communion at 10 o'clock for anyone to join in through Zoom, and a reflection shared through YouTube on the Bible reading for the day as well. Till we meet again, my friends, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. In the name of Christ. Amen.